For the Eagles in this game, not a great game for Jalen Hurts, of course, but Kenneth Gainwell ends up dominating the backfield. I think that's the big fantasy storyline. Rashad Penny, not active.
Yeah,
not
a
active.
healthy scratch.
Healthy scratch in this game. I mean, obviously not much going at all for DeAndre Swift. This has been the backfield all summer, guys, that we've kind of scratched our heads at, Jay. But listen, a month ago, we talked about this. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be a part, and Barry, you said it. Kenneth Gainwell is not going anywhere. He ends up being by far and away the leading back here.
Yeah, on one of the best offenses in football, behind one of the best offensive lines in football. And if you don't have Kenneth Gainwell on your team, you only have yourself to blame. This is from a month ago. Listen to this. Kenneth Gainwell had 11 goal-to-go carries. Only 8 fewer over the course of the season than Miles Sanders. But I think what we're all saying here is that Kenneth Gainwell is basically free in drafts. And so if you want to take a dart throw at the Eagles running back situation, which we all don't know, right? Because Swift is going to have a role, Penny's going to have a role. Obviously, Hurts is always a threat to vulture a touchdown when you're getting close to. The fact of the matter is Gainwell will have a role. And of all the running backs, he's by far the cheapest. And why not throw a last round pick or, a late round pick on Kenneth Gainwell?
We're a pretty humble show, I would like to say. We don't really, but sometimes you just need to pat yourself on the back.
I'm just saying, a little bit.
Especially you. Like, out of anybody on the desk that should do it, just a little bit more of that.
Well, listen, you guys know me. I'm never about me. I'm always like, listen, I'm team first. No, don't put the attention on me.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk
let Jane
about
Connor
me.
do this.
No, absolutely not.
Yep.
It's, there's no I in team. You know me. I'm always like the first one to shun the spotlight. No questions. No photos. Let me just. Yep. But I'm just trying to grind away and do the work. But yes, in this one particular case, I will allow a little bit of victory lapping.
Any concern about the Eagles' offense? Because it didn't look good. Did not
look good.
Probably just the product of the Patriots' defense, but little concern that it wasn't more kind of all cylinders. They really should have lost that game.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and the fact of the matter is that Jalen Hurts, who I had as my number one quarterback and who was a top 3 quarterback for every single person out there doing fantasy, was the second best fantasy quarterback on that field yesterday by a wide margin. But suddenly Mac Jones, and we'll talk about that in a second, but because I think that's a little bit of a fluke. But yes,
the script was bizarre in this game.
It was a bizarre script, and they had to throw a ton. And but yes, Jay, to answer your question, I am concerned. Again, we saw this a little bit after Lamar Jackson's 2019, right? When he had that crazy season. When we saw this a little bit after Mahomes, when he went nuts. The league adjusts. And everyone that has the Eagles on their schedule this year is like, okay, I'm playing Jalen Hurts. I'm playing the Eagles. I'm playing the NFC champions this year. Let me figure out what they did. Let me get prepared for this. And so obviously Belichick and the Patriots were prepared for the Eagles. Also, it's the first game of the season. It's rough. By the way, weather wasn't great in New England either. But yeah, I don't know that there's a takeaway other than, you're still next week, you're still starting A.J. Brown, you're still starting Devontae Smith, you're still starting Jalen Hurts, you're still starting Dallas Goedert despite the fact he had a brutal game, right? You're still doing, but are you I'm fine, no worries. Yeah. No, and it's what's weird is that they were better offensively than the Bengals. And yet I feel better about the Bengals offense than I do about the Eagles. Am I crazy there?
No, it's because there is no way that Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase can fail over a full season with health. There is potentially a way that the Eagles offense just might not be as good as last year. And you raised the point about teams that have the Eagles on their schedule. Those teams are just better than the teams that had the Eagles on their schedule last year because the Eagles had the easiest schedule in football just about. So I do think there are some concerns, but again, there's no action outside of kind of paying attention to the feeling in your stomach, which is a little bit queasier.
Little nerve-wracking. And the other thing is listen, Kenneth Gainwell, who was a top 23 running back as we head into Monday Night Football, they play Minnesota on Thursday night. That's a defense you want to go against, right? That's the one positive is that Philadelphia has a short week to turn it around, and they get the Vikings on Thursday night. If ever there was a solve, they made Baker Mayfield look good, on Sunday. So and then they're at Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football. They get my Commanders, and then they're at the Rams. So the schedule does get a little bit easier for Philadelphia here in the next few weeks.
One other thing we were watching in this game was the New England backfield, of course, with Ramondre Stevenson and the newly signed Ezekiel Elliott. Ramondre ends up getting 12 carries and 6 receptions. Ezekiel Elliott only 7 carries and 5 receptions. So not a ton of surprise, Barry, by the usage of these two players.
The only thing that was interesting is that Zeke gets 5 receptions. Again, Ramondre 6 for 64 in the passing game. Great, you'll take that all day, every day. And Zeke was just 5 for 14, but still,
That's 7 targets.
Right.
As well.
That's the interesting thing here. I think they would have. Those 5 receptions were his most since Week 12 of 2021. He was tied for second on the team in targets. You mentioned about the 7 targets. So, and there was 1 goal line snap, right, when the Patriots went for that 2-point conversion, and Zeke was in the backfield, not surprisingly. So that was the only thing that was a little bit surprising to me was Zeke's passing game usage. So there may be some more standalone value to Zeke than we thought, other than just being, Ramondre insurance. But Ramondre still finishes as, a top 12 fantasy running back. He played on 74% of the snaps. He got 60% of the team's running back carries. Ramondre is going to be fine. I will say this. The 2 other stars, like Mac Jones had a crazy game where he threw it a ton. I don't
Dropped
imagine.
back like 60 times.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to ever happen again. That's not what they.
Pretty good.
They're not built that way. They don't want him to be that guy. But I think the 2 other big takeaways for me is, number one is the Patriots offense is going to be functional this year, which last year it wasn't. It's going to be functional this year. Mac Jones, I think, is going to be a viable bye-week guy, or if you're in a deep 2-quarterback league, I think you potentially could get some. And I think Kendrick Bourne is going to be a thing. Now, Devontae Parker wasn't active for this game, but Kendrick Bourne, I thought, looked great. 20% target share. Obviously, the 2 touchdowns, but whatever, 6 for 64. But I thought this is somebody that has, when he has gotten opportunities, has looked good. And we talked in the preseason about Hunter Henry being a thing. Start your tight ends against Philadelphia, like Hunter Henry, anytime touchdown, that cashed, great, obviously. But I do think those 2 guys are going to be things in a better than you think Patriots passing attack.
Hunter Henry's going to have 750 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns and be very viable. Mac Jones is looking for him in the end zone, so yeah, I think he will be a very viable tight end.
But I think there may be some standalone value for Josh Kelly this year, and certainly it's very clear, is it Kelly, is it Isaiah Spiller, who is kind of the insurance back for Austin Eckler if you roster him? Kelly is clearly the guy, and should be a priority on the waiver wire, well, after, a couple of obvious other guys. But, right, if you won the week 1 and, and you have Eckler or whatever, and, you're not going to get, Puka Nacua and some of the other guys that we're going to talk about.
A great Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, exactly. The great Tutu Atwell, a Ravens running back, etc. We'll get to all that. But anyway, that was the biggest takeaway here from the Chargers for me.
Yep.
Over in Jacksonville Colts, the Jaguars traveled to Indianapolis for this game. We got to see Anthony Richardson make his NFL debut. But I think more importantly even than that, before we get there, Calvin Ridley back in style, guys. What a return it was for Calvin Ridley. Ends up having over 24 fantasy points. He's standing as wide receiver 5 right now. Jay, I think the big question of Calvin Ridley was he had a lot of time off. He dealt with the suspension for a year. He did have the full summer with Trevor Lawrence. It wasn't will he be a good NFL player again? It's will he reestablish himself as a number 1 wide receiver? And week 1 against the Colts, he showed he's ready to do that.
Yeah, the 2 players I was most interested to see in the NFL this week, who I thought were the 2 highest variance players coming into the season, with Deshaun Watson and Calvin Ridley for different reasons. But Deshaun, not great, hold there, we'll see what happens. Calvin Ridley, though, answered every question against a Colts defense that was feistier than I thought it would be. Sure. And he looked exactly like the guy that he left off being. So, I think he is a top 10 wide receiver going forward and just looks like a monster.
100%. Look, if you read my 10 lists of 10 column, I mentioned, and by the way, shout out to Dwayne McFarland who talked about this. The fact of the matter, this should not be a surprise to anyone that watched the preseason or read my 10 lists or follows Dwayne McFarland on Twitter, which is the fact of the matter is he was just talking about the fact the utilization of Calvin Ridley was ridiculous in terms of the amount of percentage of snaps that he was playing and the routes that he was running with the first team offense. Again, all small sample size stuff, but again, 34% target share, 50% of the team's red zone targets in this one, 11 targets. He played on over 80% of the offensive snaps in this one. It's going to be him and Zay Jones. That's the biggest takeaway is not only that, hey, it's going to be Calvin Ridley. It's an ascending offense. It's an elite quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. It's a pass-happy and pass-first offense under Doug Peterson. But more importantly, by the way, Christian Kirk relegated just to the slot. It is Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley on the outside, and it's Ridley and Jones, and then Kirk is sort of more felt like at least in game one, kind of the number 3 pass catcher and a distant third, because again, sometimes they go with 12 personnel, and so
still have Evan Ingram there.
Yeah, they still have Evan Ingram there as well. And we talk about the running backs here, but yes, this is not a fluke with Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and Kirk only played 61% of snaps after never being below 75% last year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty kind of red flags for Christian Kirk early.
He was 5th on the team in targets. Right? I mean, this is somebody who last year had 6 or more targets in 14 of 17 games. He had 3 targets. Again, not only was Ridley, Jones, and Ingram, but Etienne got more targets than him as well. He only got 2 more targets than Tank Bigsby.
It's concerning.
It is concerning.
That is not what
there you go. Well done. You're not the host of a streaming service show for nothing. Connor Rogers, good job.
Not what you want to hear.
Just quickly on Etienne, a lot of concerns about Bigsby eating into his workload. I mean, he got 18 carries. He had 5 receptions. Like that was a good outcome for Travis Etienne yesterday. Yes, Bigsby did steal some of his work, but I think if he's getting that percentage of usage, he's fine and he'll be
And Etienne had a chance at another play, Lawrence just missed him, and another big play there. And so, yeah, exactly. Bigsby's going to have a role, but if Bigsby doesn't score the touchdown, he's sort of, I don't think he has standalone value at the moment. He may eventually, we may get there, but yeah, right now he's very important. He's insurance for Etienne, but that's about it.
Yep.
On the other side, we got to see the highly anticipated debut of Anthony Richardson. A lot of promise from Richardson in the game, and we got to hear from him on his first NFL start.
So I was pretty hyped, getting here. I was pretty focused, pretty calm. Throughout the game, emotions were everywhere. I was happy. I was a little bit more chilled, and I was happy again. So that was that. And then after the game, I was a little hurt, because I feel like we had it. We just got to clean some things up as an offense. I feel like the defense helped us out a lot. We just couldn't, do anything for them at the time. But I felt good throughout the whole thing, and it's just something we got to learn from and just work on. I'm all right. More so hurt that we lost than my knee, but. Other than that, I'm good.
That last quote from Richardson was him addressing the shot he took to his knee down near the goal line, guys. Sounds like he'll be okay. He throws for a touchdown in this game. He runs for a touchdown in this game. His 10 rushing attempts and 40 yards ends up leading the Colts in rushing. I think, listen, we've talked about the difference between Richardson as an NFL player and a fantasy player this season. I think definitely from the fantasy perspective, Barry, you couldn't ask for much more in this guy's NFL debut.
We had him on Monday Night Football, and he's a top 5 fantasy quarterback in Week 1. We talked about this in the preseason. I had him as a low-end QB1, and I thought I had him significantly. What I said was, I'm at QB 12. He's currently going at QB 16, so I have him significantly ahead of consensus, and I think I'm too low on him. Right? And so he's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think there are a couple positives here. He handled 2 of the 3 goal-to-go carries that he got there. You mentioned about the rushing, but also, by the way, the passing, I think, was better than anyone expected, right? Again, he was 24 of 37, so he completed 65% of his passes. He had over 220 yards. He had the 1 interception, but still threw for a touchdown as well. That you'll live with that.
He looked the part. There was never a time where, Bryce Young, his head was spinning yesterday. C.J. Stroud at times, tough one. For Richardson, he really looked. He had to put the whole offense on his back and looked the part throughout the game.
I thought it was incredibly impressive because he was the guy who's supposed to be the least ready of those 3, and he looked by far the most ready. And you just see him in the press conference as well. He's got an incredible presence. He speaks very well. He just seems like he's in control. And the fact that he added the work on the ground as well. Connor, what did you make of just overall Young, Stroud, and Richardson yesterday?
I thought Richardson is a guy where it goes to show you of looking the part of an NFL quarterback, right? Being 6'5", 240, being able to take the hits, being able to break tackles down in the red area for more yards, especially for first downs, and the confidence. And let's be real. Shane Steichen is a total game changer for him to have that coach in his ear as a rookie. This is a guy that didn't play a lot in college. Now he has a guy that you can call maybe almost a quarterback whisperer, what he did with Jalen Hurts. Now he's doing that with Anthony Richardson. So I like the offense for him, but I think the skill set also gives him a higher floor than the rest of the guys that had to play right away.
Yeah. Bryce Young's just got no weapons as well.
Yeah, right.
A couple other things that worked in Richardson's favor here. First off, by the way, they were close. They were competitive. At no point were they blown out, so they had to become a one-dimensional offense. They were able to, it was 14-7, 17-14.
It was close game.
It was close game throughout the game. So I think, number one, that helped because they could be more balanced and they weren't just one-dimensional. The other thing is honestly, Evan Hall gets banged up. Deion Jackson's brutal in this. He loses two fumbles. So basically, I feel like if Jonathan Taylor is playing for this team, and we'll see, right? Report came out before the game that Jonathan Taylor is going to clear his physical and ready to go as soon as he's able to come out in week 4, whether they let him, whether he's still on the Colts, who knows? It's still a mess. But the fact is that if Jonathan Taylor were back there, does he get all the goal line work? That's a question. He's going to sap some value from whoever the starting running back of the Colts is. But if Jonathan Taylor is with the Colts, Taylor's obviously going to take some of that off of Richardson. Having said that, though, if you invested a pick in Anthony Richardson, you have to be thrilled. That's as good a performance, NFL and fantasy-wise, as you could hope from Anthony Richardson. I mentioned this. When I interviewed him at the NFLPA Rookie Premiere, he was my favorite interview. Yep. I talked about that. Like, I'm just telling you, this kid is focused and really impressive. You saw that in the post-game press conference as well. So, sky's the limit for Anthony Richardson. Very exciting. I think he's still a QB1. Like, start him if you got him.
Yep. I'd rather have him over Deshaun Watson.
1,000%.
Not even close.
Yeah. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.